The lack of knowledge around the status of broadband service deployment and consumer adoption in the United States adversely affects the ability of policymakers to make sound decisions. For instance, the federal government can do a much better job in reforming multi-billion-dollar grant and subsidy programs, whether at the Rural Utilities Service or the Universal Service Program at the Federal Communications Commission, if we have better data on where we truly need to target government assistance. As such, this bill represents an indispensable first step in developing an overarching blueprint for broadband policy in the United States. This bill also encompasses a broadband mapping effort as well as community organizing initiatives for underserved and underserved areas to increase knowledge of where, what type, and what speed of broadband service may be available. This is a very consumer-friendly mapping function and demand-side identification initiative that consumer groups, the high-tech community, and the telecommunications industry all support. The amendment I am offering this afternoon reflects several weeks of negotiations. You, Mr. Dingell, and myself, in conjunction with Mr. Barton and Mr. Upton and other members of the committee, with the Communications Workers of America, with NARUC, Connect Kentucky, Quest, and organizations representing the high-tech industry, the cable industry, the telephone industry, and the wireless industry. And using a Red Sox metaphor so appropriate at this time, that's as close to a high-tech home run as one can hit on broadband policy. In brief, this bill makes significant progress in getting more and better data about our nation's broadband deployment and consumer adoption, as well as in visually depicting broadband availability, engaging our national progress over several years. The amendment I am offering tasks the FCC with collecting data from providers of broadband service, the capability throughout the country, and with developing a series of tiers for categorizing the speeds of such services. The data collected will be disclosed to the public in an annual report and will include the actual number of residential and business subscribers within each 5-digit zip code, and with a list of the broadband technologies present in each zip code. And 2, the actual number of residential and business subscribers correlated to each broadband speed tier identified by the FCC on a statewide basis. The amendment also requires NTIA to develop a national broadband availability map, which will indicate the providers of such service at the 9-digit zip code level, census tract level, or functional equivalent. The map will be interactive and searchable by consumers, and at the provider's discretion will also indicate the type of technology and speed of service offered in that area. The legislation also includes authorizations for grants to local planning entities, to communities around the country. These grants are designed to increase broadband availability and usage in local communities through so-called demand-side identification and other initiatives. To better gauge how the country is performing compared to international competitors, the bill also requires the FCC to conduct a comparison of the extent of broadband service capability abroad in 75 foreign communities with equivalent American communities. And in addition, the substitute amendment contains a requirement for an annual consumer survey to evaluate on a statistically significant basis the national characteristics of broadband use by consumers, including price, actual speed, typical applications, consumers' utilization, and reasons why consumers decline to subscribe to broadband service and other information. And finally, this amendment adds sunset provisions of 6 years for the data collection provision and 7 years for the national broadband mapping function. Again, I want to thank Mr. Barton and Mr. Upton, along with you, Mr. Chairman, for your excellent work on this legislation. I urge members to support this amendment, and I yield back
Would the gentleman yield?
I'll be glad to yield to the
I just want to, again, you weren't here during the opening statements, but I just want to thank you and your staff for it being able to come to an agreement that we all could share, and obviously my co-sponsorship on this bill.